Hello and welcome to this episode 177 of Frame and Reference. You're about to drop into a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest Phedon Papamichael, DP of A Complete Unknown. Enjoy.
I've watched most of the contenders, and then I was at Camarage this year, so I got to see some films that haven't made it here as part of the international films, and The Girl with the Needle is out projected in Poland, and Mila Perez and Honora I saw at the Nord on film projected, and Conclave, and yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be a pretty good year. I mean, the Honora's getting a Criterion release like off rip. It's like tomorrow. They're like, yeah, wait, we have it on Blu-ray already.
Yeah. So, and then, our film, I guess, is also a Complete Unknown. I guess it's now on IMAX also. I don't know if we'll make film prints, but, we had that analog intermediate where we went negative, and that was kind of interesting process. But I'm not sure if Searchlight is planning on any film prints. It's always nice to show it at the Vista or somewhere where they have a film projector.
Yeah.
But we've created a pretty nice film texture feel by going to, not just through emulating it in the DI, but actually this was really fun going to a negative, lasering out to 5203 stark and picking up all the film qualities, because it's not just grain, it's a whole bunch of stuff that comes in. It's hard to really point out exactly how it reacts, but it definitely reacts on the negative differently to what you set on the DI. But all your color correction settings and everything is already baked in, so the negative gets exposed with all your corrections, all your windows, all your saturation, your contrast. But then it still does. It's alive, it does different things on films. Some colors react slightly different, picking up a little bit of projector removal and dirt, which they spend time removing. But I'm like, do we need to remove it? It's not like the fake Super 8 app.
Right.
It was nice. It was very, very satisfying to do this process, because when it first came up, when we tested it, and I was exploring LUTs, based on references and photos from the 60s and street photographers, and really trying to fine tune into this Kodachrome aesthetic with the saturation, the contrast, and actually not that much latitude on those film stocks at all. It was nice, that David Cole and being at Photochem, which of course has a lab, and offering that up, because I've also had other colorists sort of I gave him references of movies like French Connection, Conversation, and things like that, and just like they all came up with amazing LUTs, and that we were going to work with on set, and keep throughout post, because it's always important that editorial and director keeps the image in front of them that is close to the final product. It's very important. So then when you hit the DI stage, you're not reinventing everything and sending people in panic. But this film emulation was really quite beautiful, and just the right amount of grain. Because I was talking to Ed Lachman, like even on Maria that he shot on film, he still used live grain, I think, to add additional texture, because the stocks are not quite as grainy as maybe you would want to. And I was talking to Harris on Balucos on Beetlejuice. They even scanned it.
Great.
Yeah, he's so great. He's technical also. And I told him about this. He goes, "No, Phedon, that doesn't really work so well, because it's 1ASA stock. Like I've been, he was playing with this idea for years, before I even knew it's possible. I go, well, we're not doing this 1ASA print stock. We're doing like, oh, okay, finally, because, on Beetlejuice, he scanned in 1938 silver nitrate stock, and he loved that degree of grain and texture, but that's like a live grain. They can offer you any, all this grain, but they can offer you any kind of stock, and you can really have a lot of flexibility. You can really fine tune it in. So, but I was quite happy with exactly what that stock gave me, and then their color science at Photochem, they've really perfected how to optimize how it goes on an egg, and they put a lot of ND apparently on the area laser when they film out, and I don't know, because I guess it's pretty bright, and I don't know. I don't know all the. I'm not that technical.
Right.
I
know the results.
I see it on the big screen. I go, that looks great. I like that. Or I go, I don't feel it enough, or so. But exactly what the do with their color science and all the little finessing and tricks, which takes them years to fine tune. I couldn't really explain that to somebody on a podcast.
Sure. Well, and is doing that film out, obviously you get the grain and stuff, but is it mostly textural? Because obviously you're saying you do the color grade that gets transferred to the negative, but is the negative applying its own kind of grade essentially? Like, are you having to account
Well, that's
for
what
that
I was saying. Yeah, it does. You're basically applying your grade that you created in the DI. I mean, you're still on the resolve, and you're building your windows and tracking and doing dynamics, and you have all the full tool set. We also work, even in dailies, we emulate grain, so we're already like accustomed, and editorial and director are already seeing, and the studio is already seeing something that's emulating the grain. So when we did the early tests, we did do the shift AI, it's called, but AI, again, not to be confused, it's analog.
Intermediate. Yeah.
So we do we in the testing we did go through, and you can even go further than just a negative. You can do an IP, you can do photochemical, you can do treatment, you can do silver retention, ANR, you can go to different stocks. So all of that affects it. What we did though in our test, for our purposes, to compare it and come up with a lot, we just went to that particular stock, 50. It's 50, say daylight, the 5203 Kodak negative stock, and then use that as a reference. So when we emulated for the purposes of our on-set lot and for the dailies, that was kind of matching what will happen once we go to film. So we had it as a reference, because also when you're in post and you're waiting, you lock in a reel. Let's say you lock in reel runs through 3, and then you do film out. That takes a little bit of time. So your DI is finished. Your DI time has been officially used up. Let's say whatever it is, 100 hours, and then you start filming out. And then you need more time when it comes back to tweak it. And we weren't exactly. I mean, I haven't been through this process before, so I didn't really know how much work that will require to adjust from how it comes back from film, but it was really minor. And David Cole's done it before. I mean, they did similar things on Dune 2 and on Batman. And
I was going to say, you should have asked Greg.
I did. We did talk.
Oh, yeah.
In Poland, and we did talk about it. But I mean, and David Cole I'd worked with before. He did Ides of March with me, so we had some. It's not like all new for me. And Photochem is historically my place, because way back in the Corman days in the late '80s, I mean, that's where we did everything. Photochem. Motto, my dear friend and timer, who's now retired, but we did all our movies there. So I'm still very familiar with timing answer prints.
Yeah.
Which is still never just to surprise me how how simple and primitive it was in a way, and how we still timed entire features like with 3 answer print passes just by holding little magenta gels in and adding, okay, 2 points of red, 200. Just now that you have this incredible array of tools, uh, so many options, it also becomes about discipline, about not overusing it. I mean, I remember the first DI was on Walk the Line. First time Jim and I did one. There was some hesitation. We don't want it to look. I mean, it was starting to switch over to digital projectors and less film projectors, and but back then we would still, after the DI, do a film out and a release print. But I said, don't worry about it. Like, I mean, we can do things, but it doesn't mean that we have to do everything that they can do. But what we did, for example, on Walk the Line, we had this Thanksgiving scene out by the lake house, and we were forced to shoot it in the summer. It was all lush green trees, and
right.
And then we just went, and I go, let's just make them yellow brown like it's fall, and that was obviously a perfect use for it, and things you couldn't do in your answer print, and or you had to make optical VFX and all that. So I mean, but yeah, I mean, so in this case, again, like we in RDI, we were working towards making it look like film. While we're watching the DI back, we're looking at with emulated grain on it. And what I was saying is, as you start filming out, sometimes you're missing shots because you're still waiting. It's
Sure.
quite normal. You're waiting for the effect shots for finals to come in, and they were like, okay, well, if we don't get those in by Thursday, then they're not going to make the film out. Because we also had an accelerated post. The movie was originally going to maybe come out in 2025, right? And so, but we got them all in. But initially we still had some plugged in, some emulated, and when you're watching the reel back, they really don't jump out. So you can get very close. And I'm saying to David, oh, that looks really good. But it's just something. You feel it, and I go, well, what is it? Like? Help me identify it. He goes, well, I mean, it's hard even for him, but it's definitely, look, it's real film. It does react to some colors differently. The blacks, the contrasts.
I was going to say the highlight curve, probably.
That highlight curve, which is all things you can try and achieve in your DI, but yeah, it's just nice when you're not like trying to dial it in and guess it, when you're just getting the real thing. So I was quite happy with that. And then, and then of course the question begs itself, like, well, okay, why don't you just shoot film? But for the reasons I mentioned earlier, the film starts, it's quite limited. You're dealing with 400 ASA. Yes, you can maybe push it, but you're not necessarily getting the texture you want. Even when you shoot on film. And of course, I'm limited to shooting at low ASAs, which for this particular movie I wanted very natural, not lit environments, like on the night exteriors, on the streets, and the village when he's walking around. And I really didn't want to set big condors and backlights. I wanted to take advantage of all the period practicals and in the venues in the beginning when he's playing the smaller clubs and just using all the stage lighting.
Yeah, I saw behind the scenes video doing some research and shit, and like I saw for the walking scene, you're pretty much just lighting them with a dash.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is
what
I would do, because I had part of my initial test was because I discovered that the Sony, actually there was a FX3 that I was forced to use on a commercial that I did in Bulgaria, and it had the 12,800 setting.
Right.
So I played with that, and I go, wow, it looks really good, at least on my OLED monitor and on my 20. I mean, it looked fine. I go, I do want to test this Venice too. So part of
that's another Greg question.
and so I I shot at native 3200, then 64, 12,800, not 1,280. And then we projected it big. I had it, I shot it with my custom build Panavision anamorphics that Dan Sasaki built for me with B front elements, and so I wanted to see all the contrast of the lenses with this. And I actually shot FX3 just as a reference also, and the Venice 2, exactly the same shots with my lighting that would be approximating kind of situations I would have on the movie, and projected it big. And I go, this, and while I was sitting there, I go, this looks very clean. I mean, let me see 64. Okay, we had it all broken down, the reels. Let me see the same at 12,800. I mean, really kind of irrelevant. I mean, again, like I don't do color science or all of that, but I mean, like I just look at it, and a good projector, a big enough screen, and I go, this is fine, especially since we're going to go out of film. I don't think any of this barely perceivable noise increase or blacks, or maybe, as long as you have contrasty images, it's not a problem anyway. If you don't have a strong highlight or something in the shot, and you're super low light level, which I was often, for example, the scene at Pete Seeger's cabin when the car pulls up, I mean, that was like pitch black. And because there was some natural fog rolling in, and I had just a couple of vortexes on the ground, just very low illumination. I mean, to the light meter,
just says EO.
Yeah, I mean, my specter doesn't, the needle doesn't move. So those, when I shot him, although I had done the tests and I was happy with the tests, I mean, when I shot those scenes, I said, I want to go in and project these. I just want to make sure, and I want David to see them and make sure we're okay with that thin negative, let's say. He goes, it's fine. And if there ever was an issue, you can, of course, denoise before you go to film out. But we never had to do that. Because, then once you go to film out, you're picking up the contrast and the texture of the film, which way overpowers whatever sort of you would feel like. But again, like I said, I didn't really see any problem, even without treating it into the eye. So that was very encouraging. And it gave me the advantage of 12,800. And the reason for that was because I wanted to shoot at a deeper stock, because as I was researching the film, I was looking at those films, including my own film, $1 Million Hotel, which I had shot 800 ASA, 35 millimeter Kodak back then, and C-series anamorphic.
5247 or something like that.
You know what? I was trying to think of a number.
You can make it up. I won't know.
I'm too old, and I can't remember. 98?
Oh, sure.
5298, maybe?
Yeah.
It was 800. I rated it at 1,000 because it was anamorphics, and I never shoot them open of a 4. Like the C series, because they kind of would fall apart pretty quick, even at 2.8.5. Right. So, but I was looking at that, and I go, it doesn't feel so shallow like a large format digital sensor, like sure, the anamorphic, the quality of the lenses and all that, on Ford versus Ferrari, of course, we were the first ones to have expanded anamorphics. They were almost prototypes back then, kind of like my lenses on this one, the hybrids that really were created for this movie, with B and C front elements, and then T series rear elements and mechanics, because Dan wanted to give us the very close focus ability, which, Jim and I love to shoot close-ups physically very close on a wider lens, like a 40 or even 35 anamorphic sometimes. I mean, these numbers don't translate exactly, because the 35 is actually, because he expands them, and we would actually relabel what they are.
It's like a guesstimate.
It was like, what is a 40? And then we discover slowly during the shoot that the 50 is actually tighter than the 60 or the same.
Right.
So we relabel and we call it the 37 and the 42, and because it's they're prototypes. I mean, they're like series 101. But Jim liked the idea because often we've talked about, oh, let's do a deep focus film. Let's just shoot like a more depth of field, and I really want it because of the period and all the textures and the brownstones and the firescapes. I didn't want that all to go to mush. And while he's walking down the street, I mean, we do that in general with our protagonist. We shoot these close-ups. We love that aspect ratio, but we want to not isolate him really. We want to always, on stage, also when he's performing, you want to feel the people standing in the wings observing him as we rotate around. I want to see the audience. I don't want them to be super out of focus. So, I shot all of that stuff in my night exteriors at 8, 11.
Yeah.
And if I was sometimes 5, 6.5, I mean, Jim got so into it and used to us being deep. And he's like, what stop are you on? I go, like 5, 6 and 2/3. He goes, well, why? What did I say are you on? I'm like 6400. Because if I didn't really need to, although I didn't see a significant difference, I just go 6,400. He goes, go 12,000. He to say to the VIP, go 12,800. Well, why are you not 12,800? You told me it's fine. I
I
go,
paid
yeah,
for that ISO. I'm going to use it.
yeah. It's you offered it to me. Let me have it. And
Yeah.
so we go, okay, go 12,800. Okay, 811. Okay, but it was nice. It's nice because it's still, it's still expanded anamorphic, so it's not like everything is sharp, but you definitely maintain. So when he's walking down the street, the scene you mentioned where I literally just have two electricians with little C-stand arms and a dash light, the Roscoe dash light with the silicone dome on it, which I liked, rather than little light gear panels or asteritubes with because he's wearing Ray-Bans also at night.
Right.
So
Because he's really cool. He's a cool guy.
He's a cool guy. He's got a motorcycle. He's got a leather jacket. He's got an orange shirt, and so it's also like the whole saturation, the contrast as he transitions from Robert Zimmerman to Bob Dylan. Like the movie becomes visually a bit more vibrant, but like as a natural progression as his character develops, as the venues become bigger, the stage lights become bigger, the spotlights become hotter. So there's an arc in our lighting approach from the dim clubs and his first arrival, where he comes with his raggedy outfit and his cap and his guitar case, and we shot that early on in the winter, and it was all more muted tones, and the clubs, warm and low light, and then as he becomes famous, the picture naturally through wardrobe, through production design, through the venues being bigger, and the lighting dictates it. Again, it's very realistic approach and natural approach to everything, but still there's a curve here of like increased color saturation, contrast, and it's a big. It comes kind of naturally with the story and his character development, but on the street, yes, I had Scott Zuckermotor. We're doing this particular sequence. It's like right after it cuts to 1965. He comes out of a club. He walks down the street, and we're introducing this whole 65 world with the hippies and the bus and the guy singing opera, and he walks up to his motorcycle. We're doing these little whip pans, so it's Steadicam, and we land on this close-up, and then we track, and then we cut to a PV, and that transitions back into like ECUs, and I didn't really want to light for each particular setup, and it's just like, let's use all the actual street lights, the storefront ambiences that spill out. So I had left and right, like I said, two electricians with C-stand, these dome lights, and I'm riding on it's my little wireless dimmer board. It's called DMX-it, and it's a 12-channel.
Looks like a little Phedon.
Yeah, it's great. And I can walk with it. I can walk next to Steadicam. I can look at the actor. I can also go just take it back into my DIT area, and which is always next to Jim. Like I never isolate myself in the DIT tent. I always want to have eye contact to director. So it's become kind of our setup is video directors, monitors, So there's only Jim, Stella, the script supervisor, then with a little gap because you don't want to be too close so they hear everything. But I want to hear everything they say, and I want to be able to make eye contact. And then it's me and DIT, Patrick Sicilian in this case, and then even my big dimmer board operator, I have him in eyesight, and I don't want him somewhere far away because I have him constantly adjust what is on my little dimmer. And actually, my gaffer John Alcantara also has one. We bought two, so we have basically 24 channels available, 12 and 12. So then we talk to our main board operator, Mike, and we say, give me the dash light that's on the left, give me on channel 1. Give me the dash light that's walking on the right of camera on channel 6. So it's also like geographically always,
right.
Because you end up. I mean, I have little Velcro labels with little symbols, a warm light bulb, and it's kind of funny. All the little labeling, but then geographically, I always, or when I'm on stage, I go, give me all the vortexes that are hung on stage left on channel 1 and all of the sky panels. Like I started this system, actually, the very first time I did it was on Huntsman. Like my David Sinfield, my British gaffer, introduced me to this wireless working around with it.
Interesting.
But then we did it. David Sinfield also did Indiana Jones with James and I, and Jim kind of liked it because we're doing a lot of blue screen stuff, and I'm on an airplane or in a rickshaw, but on stage, and I'm actually watching the plates play back on a monitor, and I'm reacting. Okay, they're going to cut the corner, and they're going into full frontal, and I'll bring up like my little slider. It's like live mixing. It's like a sound, or like shifting between booms. They come around the corner. I'll bring up like a 10K hard light on them, and then they go into an alley, and I drop it, and I just have the sky panels for ambience, and so it's quite fun, and it keeps me busy since I don't get to operate that much anymore.
Yes, got to give me something.
They go by faster, but this was very similar. So I mean, just much smaller units, much less light level, which is great because then, you're still lighting with faces, you're still dealing with contrast ratios that you would have. It's not like, oh, I'm not lighting anymore. And, it's still very controlled. Actually, a lot of it is about taking light away, negative fills, people walking with floppies, blacks. But, I'm taking advantage of, on that scene where he walks down the street, I even have ambience in the sky. Well, it's pitch black to your eye. But just the city ambience off the buildings is illuminating, the overcast sky, and that's beautiful. You read all that. I'm having these dash lights at like 5%, 10%, or sometimes depending on how he moves and how he looks, I don't use them at all. They're really kind of like standby for when, let's say, pauses, or I can shift keys. He looks on the ground somewhere, and I can just give him a little something. But often the electricians would come to me alarmed. They go, it wasn't on the last one. I go, I know, but they're still walking with it, but it might be off like the entire take. That's good. Just stay. And I talk to them because the people who are maneuvering and hand holding these lights, I mean, I'm in communication with them even during the take. I go, bring it low, 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 low. Okay, and then I'm take 1. Usually, I kind of use that as a light rehearsal because we don't really do rehearsals, especially with Timothy. It was always kind of like, there's no point. I mean, it's like it's fun to shoot and take 1, and because you never really in blocking rehearsals, and they just don't bring it the same way, and then you don't, you really only discover what it is when you're actually shooting. Right. So often I kind of discover what the body language, what the head movements, how an actor is, how he's playing it, and then adjust it. Like, so I'll be talking to the guy, I go like, lower it, lower it, lower it. I mean, it's quiet, like the actor can't hear it. And then, okay, hold it there. And then, I'll use it or I don't use it. But I think it's really a great way, and it's really, I feel it's optimized for me, like taking advantage of the digital technology of the new cameras, the old glass, the film analog, film intermediate. I mean, I feel like it's giving me everything I kind of want. Like if I want something to look like film, and if I was doing that on film, I mean, of course it's possible. I've done 40 features on films.
Yeah.
But
like 10 on digital.
It's more labor intensive. Yeah. And I want to be fast, and it's almost entirely location picture. It's like 60 days, but like 100 locations. So we're doing company moves in New York, like in Hoboken, actually in Jersey, like pushing the carts around the corner to another street. And, it's not, you don't need to pre-light run cable. And it's great. It's great for directors. It's great for for the actors. We can all kind of like not wait for a lot of, you don't want to get in.
When there's not like a fixture in their face or whatever, it's more they can get it.
Well, also that, it's even on stage, we did have some stage sets. We had his apartment, and
right.
but again, I'm 12,000 day interior in his apartment. I don't need to, but I'm doing it because I'm also trying to be consistent with our textures. And
Sure.
but that means instead of hanging, you know, Air Maxes or 360 sky panels. I mean, I'm like, okay, send up a baby on the stand or a parquet and hit the bed, and then the whole room is like whatever bounce you're getting off the sheets, and it takes care of all the ambient. I mean, it's great because it's quick. The stage is not hot, and the actors feel like they're in a much more realistic environment because there's not a lot of gear on the floor. There's not a lot of flags. So then Timothy comes in and he can explore his space because he's also, discovering his little kitchen area, his coffee machine. He hasn't figured out that it's not like we come and dictate, here's your mark and this is the blocking. It's like it's the rehearsal with the actors before any technical team shows up, and he'll try one take. He's standing by the window looking out. The next one, he'll go in the darkest corner by his bed and sit there. And then Jim will go, "Is that okay with you?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, it's and it's so we discover it ourselves. We discover where the actors go, and often, I mean, Timmy has a very good instinctive uh, reaction to how Bob would have been in the space. Like we have a scene where he goes to this pub, and we had it all planned before Timmy came to set. Like he's going to walk in, he's going to sit by the bar, watch this band for a while. It's when he gets punched in the face, and
yeah, he goes to the window instead.
Yeah, and then we go, okay, Timmy. So we were thinking this and that. So, yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't really like sit in the middle of this place. I don't want to be recognized. And I'd go. And then so then he goes over, and by the window, of course, we didn't plan that, and it wasn't so much a lighting problem with all the trucks are parked outside, and it's like a scramble. We also, have to move all this equipment and the sound people and the IT, but it's okay. So but I'm very flexible with the light. Then it's like it's okay, and I just put up a stereo tube out the window or a light panel or a little sky panel, and then just give them a little kiss from outside the window, and it's fine. It's just you can maneuver really quickly and not get into big setups. But yeah, I mean, even Mangold was a youth lit like he'd walk onto stage, onto set, and especially the night scenes. And the other set we had was the Viking Motel.
Right.
When Pete Seeger comes in the morning, brings coffee. And, I mean, it was so dark. I was kind of playing it like it's 7 a.m, very little blue, cooler ambience out the windows, and then like turns on one practical, and I'm just augmenting the practical very little bit. And but it's as dark as it would be on a lit set. It's so the actors are. I mean, Jim was definitely sometimes remarking to, wow, it's like, I mean, in a positive way. He was like, this is great. It doesn't feel like we're walking, onto a movie set now.
So when you're doing, one thing that I've always kind of felt like with these higher ISO cameras is that you can run into the issue of not building enough contrast into the negative. So as you were saying, using negative fill to build that, are you also like in the grade just using a lot of windows to kind of like add that contrast back in, or are you completely happy with just letting it ride?
I really take a lot of care in controlling my ambience. So that's why I'm saying, like, I'll put black down everywhere on the ground, on the negatives as close as I can to frame. It's really about shaping it by eliminating ambience. I'll hang on every wall, on the ceiling, sloppies broken over. I mean, that part is equipment, of course, that the actors deal with, but it's kind of nice because it still kind of creates an intimacy. It's especially when you're working with movie stars on the street and stuff. I mean, I have 20 by 20s blacks. I have a lot of blacks up. So I do control my contrast, and I was talking to Janusz Kaminski, who was looking at it, and he lights very, he has a very
Expressive.
expressive, and he was looking at some stuff, and he goes, no, it's like, I mean, we're not fans of unlit things. We like to express the story through deciding what is dark and what is lit, and it's not like I'm just natural light. I mean, it all has a natural approach. It's a logical approach based on a practical. So, or if somebody is being front lit by practical, I cut to the reverse of a character. I'm gonna have it make sense where he's 3/4 backlit from that. I mean, I kind of have a hard time not applying a natural logic to my lighting, but I do shape it, and I do have the key ratio, fill key, or typically I have no fill because, as you know, I mean, these cameras are so sensitive. They really like off of. I go, why is he red? And then I see, oh, there's like a red ashtray somewhere.
Or the tally light. I noticed I was testing the C80 and the tally light, it was making the whole room red. And I was like,
it's crazy.
With my hand, I was like,
I'm like, what is this blue? He's got a blue fill. And I walk over, and it's on some wireless control. Like, there's a tiny little blue LED light on the camera. I'm like black tape, like tower, walk around. Yeah. I mean, I become like a Nazi with the clothing of a crew.
Right. Yeah.
Like a set dresser will come with a pink sweatshirt. I'm like, no pink, no reds, no yellows. When we're on the street with these, we have to put on the safety vests.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I talked to, then I talked to production. I go, not with this camera. I can't have 10 crew people, boom guys with orange safety vests. And I'm like, sorry. Yeah, so it's really crazy. But, there's that, me controlling all that. But then there's also the LUT that I create is a very much a film LUT to begin with. It's sort of a Kodak Chrome emulated film light. It's very contrasty. It has switched to, I mean, it has a lot of contrast built in, and then it has also a color curve that's very much like Kodachrome. It's picking up reds, and it's very saturated. And that's the one thing when I do live grading on set, which, we don't do on a regular basis. Pretty much we live with the one LUT we have throughout the show. But sometimes I go, like, it depends on the environment. I go like, skin tones are a bit yellow. Like, what is it? And it's based on the wall color and some, and I will tweak skin tones and sometimes adjust. I mean, even the blacks sometimes, because that same very contrasty LUT, like on a contrasty environment, the exterior walking, which we have some in the sun and they go around the corner into shade, I do adjust it. I lift the blacks a little bit, and and then because the dailies really get copied one-to-one as we create them, because we spend so much time developing the LUT, and then we spend time adjusting it on set, that the instructions to the dailies colorist is just make it exactly like that.
Right.
Because Jim is also very conscious of, Mangold is very conscious of what the monitor looks like. That's his first impression, and he's the photographer himself. He likes this contrasty, saturated look, and on the photos he takes and he shows me later, he's applied a sort of a similar aesthetics to his grading. So he wants that when the dailies don't look exactly the way they looked on set, he's like, I don't think your guy is doing it right. And then we compare them. But on this show, it wasn't really the case. I remember like on Ford versus Ferrari, it was like they look nothing like the dailies. I go, well, no, they are. And we get in the morning and we compare the iPad to what DIT had and to our OLED, and oh yeah, you're right. It's a bit contrast a bit lifted, or saturation is a bit less. And we redo them on this show. We had really very good results, and he never made us redo them. But I do appreciate it because, as I said earlier, you live with that material in editorial for 5 months, and if it's off, it becomes your new reality. You accept it. That's, so when you actually fix it, although it's a correction and now you're making it the way you intended it, they'll go, well, that's not how it looked in dailies. Let me see the dailies. I go, yeah, in dailies it was too cool. Remember?
Right.
Like we didn't like it. He goes, yeah, no, but now I miss it. And it's a normal thing to happen because, you're living with that material. You've cut the scene, for days and days, and it becomes your new reality.
On the indie side, it's log. Like the director just seeing the log image for a long time, and then you put some contrast in, they're like, oh, it's like garish,
Yeah, yeah. And then in Europe, I see a lot of colorists. I mean, they have a much flatter, sort of almost log-like. I remember all the first Alexa movies. And then I would go in and I'd be doing color grading in Europe, and I apply all this contrast, and they go, it's such an American look.
Sure.
I don't know. I go, well, okay. But now they've changed. But I remember everything. They were complaining about digital cameras and stuff. I go, the camera is fine. It's like you're not working it in the grades, like to write. I mean, in all fairness, they also don't have the time. I mean, that's why like Alexa built in these looks, in the
35.
Yeah. So, and they asked me, you think that's good? Or like Sony was just asking me, I was just in Tokyo meeting in Yokohama with all the software engineers. And they're like, what do you think of these built-in looks? And I go, well, to me, it doesn't make sense because, they're very subtle. And I go, I'd rather do it. Like, I don't want to bake it in. I'd rather do it in the DI. But then, I was talking to other cinematographers about it, also who work in television, and they go, we don't get to, sit in the DI. We don't get to do all these things. So at least we're baking in something of what we want, and that they can't eliminate. So, but I feel, yeah, you can, I mean, so anyway, with a LUT, it's very important. That's why also I really defined a lot in pre-production and the tests, and then I shoot it. I make sure by the time we do all our hair, makeup, and wardrobe tests, everyone sees it, including wardrobe and makeup, especially, for the base of how warm.
Digital really kind of screwed the makeup people. I remember seeing, I think it was Prometheus, and it's like it must have been his first digital movie because it's very apparent, like all the makeup and the tonality of the skin.
Yeah, but that's why it's very important that when you do all those tests and you dial in like makeup and wardrobe, that they all seeing it with the LUT, which is our picture LUT, which is accepted and approved and by the director, so it's gonna stay that way throughout the post and the DI. But yes, and with makeup, I tell them, I mean, they've become much better. But yeah, the early transition when we came from film, I would say I can see it to my eye. I can, and like, it means if I mean, whereas before you could see makeup to the eye, but on film it looked okay. But I'm like, I can see, I see this and I see that, and typically, like with the directors I work with, we try not to do last look so much. With Alexander Payne, we never even, I mean, on Sideways, okay, this is back, but or with George Clooney, there's nobody last looking and stuff. And I go, we really don't need it. Like, if I see a problem, I'll call you in. I mean, stay close. But, and I will bring him in. It's not like I'm completely not looking out to them. I mean, I go, let's hit the nose here, this, but it's like, if I see it, then it's when we correct it. But typically, if it come in and I can see it to the eye, it's going to be a problem on camera also.
Well, and that goes also to, like, I learned on 16, and I remember how easy it was to throw a bunch of light at it and have it look good. And now you have to be very subtle with digital. For you, do you find that obviously that subtlety is part of it, but has your process changed with shooting digital, or is it kind of all this, so same ratios, same feel, same,
Well, so my very first digital show, which made sense for Judd Apatow because Janusz had shot the one before, and they had built 2,000-foot mags, and he likes to roll and feeding lines to Leslie Mann and Paul Rudd. And I did This Is 40 with the first Alexa Classic.
Right.
And it was great. We can roll 25 minutes or whatever it was back then, the external codec. But I go, I don't care. I'm just going to do exactly what I was. So light by and like to set by. And in the old days, then I would take a Polaroid or have my viewing glass, or through the finder, I could judge. I had the little ND glass, and I could judge all of it. I knew my stock. I knew the latitude. I knew what it's going to look like. So I did that, and I looked the set, and then I go back to the monitor now for the first time, and it looked terrible. I mean, it was horrible. Look good to eye. And so I stay by the monitor, and now I'm on the HME talking to the gaffer. I go, you go to set. Let me stay on the monitor.
You tell me what I did.
No. And then I go, okay, like turn off the 2K bounce. Okay, turn off the whatever, the Kino flow. And I go, okay, that looks okay, turn that off. Dim this one down 50%. And I go, okay, now it's looking good. But I'm still lighting by eye, but off monitor, right? So then I go to set and I go, this looks terrible to eye.
Right.
So I go, okay, all right. So that's my adjustment, of course. So I'm still light by eye the way I always did, but I can't do it to eye on set. I mean, I've become better at it, knowing now, learning, this was my first digital show, and it was the original Alexa, and, but now using the smaller lights, using less light, not being so affected because the smaller lights don't create so much passive bounce and fill. That's the other advantage of having lower light sources. Right. You're not picking up so much of it. Like I remember on This Is 40, I mean, how much green would just bounce. There were some scenes in the garden, in the yard, like the green was just everywhere. And because a bush was being hit, or a piece of the lawn was being hit by some sun, but like really far away. And and that's when I started, like, I need lots of DVT, and we need to bring all your rags out. We need to cover this whole lawn. Uh, so the adjustments, you make and you learn the camera, but I'm still lighting by, but like I said, and now I do it with a dimmer and all that, and I make sure it looks good on the monitor with my LUT. Same on Nebraska. I mean, that's a digital show. Right. And Asko Wexler called me. He goes, "What stock did you use on that?" But I'm working with not only black and white monitor. I'm working with my contrast and the LUT, the black and white LUT. I'm lighting to that. Mm-hmm. So I'm lighting to my LUT, and that's why it's very important that you dial in and decide on your LUT and early testing and in pre-production, and then you light off of that.
Yeah, well, and I've certainly run into the issue of just going, oh no, just put the stock 709. I know it'll look fine in the grade, and then you spend a year in fucking post sitting there going like, oh shit, and bring that down, bring that down, bring that down. Better to just be prepared.
Yeah. No, but we start with a LUT that is like a stock. I mean, I don't know what he calls it. My every DIT has their own little library bank of, but I go, give me that, whatever we used on Ford versus Ferrari, that Kodak lookup stock. And then we start with that as a base, and then, we tweak it, And this one, we kind of developed one from scratch, but it's obviously also based on my reference. My still photographer is William Eggleston.
I've got a couple of his books over here.
Yeah. I mean, we had, Francois, the production designer, he put together really in pre-production. Before we did anything, we had all these, it's Haas and Salt Lighter and
Sol's incredible. That's another
Sol's incredible, and those were really inspiring, and they were really sort of dictating a lot what we were doing. I mean, obviously, Francois was using a lot of sort of the tonalities and contrasts, and but there are shots where Timothy, like after he leaves Columbia Records and he's walking down the street, and when in the DI, I mean, we're really like referencing those, and it's very similar, just like the hard suns and the contrast on the streets, and it's quite saturated actually. It's very, so that was really fun to do that and create that.
Well, and also that explains the deep stop, because the street photography of the time being all rangefinder, it was F8 and B there. So
yeah, and I really think that combo, well, obviously the glass that Dan was picking and asking me about the quality of the flares, and do you want them warmer and this and that, and the deeper stop, I think, really helps this period look. I mean, I think it's more accurate than shooting at
1.4. Yeah.
Although, in the old days, I mean, I loved my super speeds, and I'm very influenced by Robbie Miller's photography and American Friend and things like that. And I mean, we did shoot, but before I started doing anamorphic, and I was using size super speeds. I mean, I often shot it wide open. I mean, that was actually a different approach, but kind of almost like you would shoot at 1.2 or something 1.4, and it had similar things where you're picking up a lot of this. It's kind of similar to these high sensitive cameras. That some of the qualities that was less contrasty. Back then, I was fighting the limited latitude and the no detail in the blacks. So, like shooting wide open, you would, somebody would light a cigarette and would like fill up. It was nice. I mean, because back then it was the opposite problem. Like things would clog up. You wouldn't have any shadow detail. Like I remember a Mouse Hunt, there was some new stock that it came out, and Linda, the son of a production designer, we had this very dark house. I don't know if you remember Mouse Hunt, but it's a Gore Verbinski movie with Nathan Lane.
I know, I remember that.
Yeah.
Nathan
They
Lane, yeah.
you kill this little mouse and leave.
Yeah. You did it. Did you do a ton of like uh were those miniature, because there's a lot of like in the wall stuff, right?
Yeah, that's all mechanical miniature. Yeah, that's
Okay.
this is the early CG. There's like three shots in Mouse, and that's a CG mouse. It's
Got
just
it.
one where he's sitting on his shoulder at the end. It was 90% real mice. We trained like
Oh
300
jeez.
mice and ended up with like 10 hero, like the best A to B runner, the best climber, some of the details and close-ups of the mouse living in its interior wall space was a mechanical mouse, and then we had one bigger, oversized one when it gets hit with an orange. And but anyway, it was very dark, and these wood panels, very dark oak and stuff. And I had to pump the opposite of what I'm doing now. I had to really pump a lot of light onto this woods and find reflection angles and to even see the texture. Like there was 2.5, 3 stops into shadows max, and windows would blow out. That's why I'm often, now even with Alexa 35, so much latitude, like I'm trying to blow out windows, and
I
the
don't think you
you're
can.
illegal. You're also, I goes, yes, I know, thank you, I want to, that's what, like the stage work on Complete Unknown, like his apartment, it's like it's a backdrop, it's a painted backdrop. So it's like I gotta blow it out.
Right.
I mean, I treat it like I'm shooting on location where I'm trying to get some exposure and some detail out there, but barely managed to if I was on film. And now I have to. I go turn on. Actually, that's where I use a lot of lights. Is hitting the backdrop. So I'm like turn on everything. Like we spot read it, but still with a light meter and all that. I go, yeah, it's 8 stops over. Do you have any more? Because it's still like I'm a monitor. I'm still seeing too much of a painted brick, So yeah, it's not like necessarily like that's why I don't really require. Like people ask me Sony and Airy and what do you want, and I go I don't need more latitude.
Right.
I really don't. I don't really need more speed either. Uh, I mean, 12,800 is just fine, and I don't really need a larger sense or like more than 8K anyway.
Yeah.
Uh,
I do
I
feel
don't
like
know. I don't know where it's going to go and how. I mean, I don't know. I could ask you that. What do you think? I mean, where is this going to keep? How do we? I don't want any more improvements.
yeah, I no, I agree. I think camera technology I feel like has plateaued in a way that we it was an arms race, right? Bigger sensor, more latitude, more speed, as you were saying. And now it's like, I think all the camera manufacturers are probably why they're like asking you. On the one hand, they want to collaborate with artists, but I think they're just like, how can we sell more of these? It was like TVs,
Yeah,
4K, 8K, HDR, all this stuff. But it's
yeah. And I told him what I think I would still want. Uh, I mean, I still want smaller camera. I want
yeah,
like they're working. I mean, like the Rialto type or the 265 now. I mean, it's great if I don't necessarily need a stick cam or a gimbal rig. If I can, and I've seen some things now that I
right.
can't talk about, but
I've had
like
a
things
few of those
on
conversations that haven't get
on
edited out.
F1 that Claudia used, and there's I mean compactness and also affordability. I mean, I own a FX3, also FX6. I didn't use him on because I had 3 Venices. I had Rialto, and Scott Sakamoto was fine on Steadicam with the Venice, and uh, but I've shot a documentary in the meantime with 3 FX6s, and it's, it's quite good. But maintaining the sensitivity, maybe 12,000 becoming even a little better because some people still feel it's maybe too noisy, but the compactness of it. The problem is then people still want their glass and the bigger lenses. I mean, now like I put my anamorphic on one of these little cameras, it's outweighs the body like 3 to 1, and also in dimension. And maybe the lenses, more compact, lightweight lenses. I mean, it's good because then it gives you a lot of flexibility to really great shots without. I mean, the reason I used the FX3 on this commercial was an Apple commercial. It's because we did these like extreme rotations, like close around the face, and they were going to bring in a Moco rig, like a huge,
arm.
very expensive. And I go, first of all, it's really close to the actor's face. It's also kind of dangerous, like these rapid whip. And I go, let's just do it like with that fixed rate like this. And the director was really into it. He actually operated all that, like. And I go, this is great. So I mean, it opens up a lot of doors for that kind of stuff without huge rigs and mechanical rigs. So
well, watching A Complete Unknown, like the thing that it was hard to watch only because I couldn't watch it critically. I just started getting into the film, and then I'm sitting there going like, no, I gotta ask questions, hold on. But the thing that came up a lot, it was just like the restraint. I just kept thinking like, this is a very restrained, not a lot of movement, not a lot of, it's just kind of obviously except for the Steadicam stuff. But
but you know what? I think the camera moves like on every shot, but we're very subtle and we move. We're always on a slider. There's little push-ins, probably on everything.
Yeah. Well, but even so, I think the thing that I was wondering about was, talking especially about the advancements in digital technology and all this is like, how do you, to your mind, what makes a good image when you have all these tools that can do anything? Like, is it that restraint? Is it, as you were saying earlier, taking away light and maybe moving just a little and not a lot, not using the tool at 100%, or what is it to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's
your images are gorgeous.
The tool is the tool, and the tool is the tool, and you can use what it can offer, and it doesn't mean you have to use it. It's just like in the DI, all the tools I have, I still, I'm not creating a look because I can. I'm telling a story. I don't want to draw attention. I mean, it's definitely more classic storytelling, not really drawing attention to. I mean, in general, always my entire career, I don't really want people to. If someone comes up to me after a screening and goes, "Oh wow, that movie looked incredible," to me, it's a bad thing. I mean, I'd rather have them be like you, where you're forgetting to make notes about what to ask technically. Like, I want people to not be aware of a filmmaker manipulating them or crafting something. And I see incredibly beautiful movies, but I'm often taken out of the story and the character because I'm too conscious of filmmaking.
Yeah. I double featured Complete Unknown with The Last Showgirl, and Autumn shot a very interesting lens on that one, but it was soft at times. And even my girlfriend was like, "What? Can you explain this?" I was like, "I'll explain it after the movie." But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, and I love Yorgos Lanthimos' look, and I love, I love The Favorite and Poor Things, but often I find myself like, the choices of the fisheye and the extreme wides, and I mean, I like it, but I don't really want to be stopped and taken out and forced to think about that.
You almost want to pause the movie and like get all those thoughts out and then hit, okay, I'm done. And then,
Yeah, and then other times it's applied really well, like movies like Ratcatcher or Dogtooth, his earlier Lanthimos, or where it's definitely a non-conventional framing and stuff, but it really works with the mood he's creating and the drama he's telling, and so I mean, we do these push-ins, but you're not noticing them because they're really appropriate and they're often motivated. Like, our camera doesn't really move if the actor is not moving. Well, unless it's a close-up, like, but the speed is very critical and crucial. the timing, when the move starts, when it stops. We're also very aware, and Jim and I would both, luckily, very similar sensibilities also in terms of editorial pattern. Like we know where the shot's going to be used, and that's really helpful. And that's, I mean, it's our seventh movie together, but I've also directed, I've cut features, and you learn. I think it's very useful for a cinematographer to have struggled through editing features, because you have to kill all your babies. There's beautiful shots, beautiful moves, beautiful long tracking shots. And whenever we set up something, a bigger move, I'm like, where is it going to play in the scene? Like, so it's not burn the move here, although it's a beautiful crane down, but it'll never be used this way. And Jim is very good, of course, understanding story and how he's gonna, so he's like, no, like, and then we look at, go, no, we shouldn't move till this line, and then we tell the operator. And then take where, and we go, no, you left too early, but you said go on this line. I go, yeah, but he didn't really look up yet. So also, it's how it's delivered. It's what the actor actually, you have to feel it. You have to look at the performance. And luckily, Scott Sakamoto is an incredibly instinctive, great operator. And that's why all that stage work during the performance, it's not like we're setting up shots. It's like Timmy plays live 3 songs back to back, and then we're creating like 100 shots in that sequence. We're extreme close-ups, rotate all the way around, another 3/4 close-up, sit on his back, and
when you mentioned having 3 Venices, were those backups, or were you shooting 3 cameras a lot?
Mostly with single camera. We're very much think single camera. A camera always is priority. Of course, when we do performance things, and I would offer up additional cameras, Jim said, sure, if you can find something, as long as it doesn't get in the way, because we're like, it's also, if anything, distracting to him. Of course, typically when we had our extras and we had the crowd, which was available only for certain parts of the day, of course, they all have to go through period makeup and wardrobe. We'd try to maximize when we had crowd, and we do the wide shots that includes crowd of the stage, and then like the wide reverses. Of course, we're adding crowd that, like when we had the biggest number of people. But then when all the performances, when we got into coverage, it's single camera. It's not like it's really just Scott, and luckily he's done Maestro and The Star Is Born and stuff. So he's very, and besides being just always, I mean, it's our 5th movie together with Scott, but he's really very good about kind of sensing when to go in, and when to pull out and reveal the turn, when to rotate around. Like, I mean, can't really communicate to him during the take. I mean, typically I have an open
thingy. Yeah.
At the thingy, but it's so loud, and you also don't really want to be in their ears.
Right.
But it's great, and Scott and Jim and I, we have very, you can call it classical or sense of composition, and that's why we like the aspect ratio. I mean, I've talked to Jim about different formats, different aspect ratios. We talk about 1:1:3 or 1:1. I'd love to do something like Hasselblad style.
Yeah.
That'd be because I'm shooting a lot of medium format now. I've gone back to shooting film with my Hasselblad and my Pentax 6x7. And
I want one of those so bad. I've got an RZ67, and I don't know if she's tried to pick one of those up, but you need a crane.
No, yeah, that 6x7 Pentax, I always wanted as a kid, and I just found one, and I just love it, and I love the sound of it. But anyway, so but luckily we all have a very similar taste, which is helpful when you're working with a director repeatedly.
Yeah. I saw you interview, or you were interviewed, I think it was for Panavision. Did I mishear, or like you kind of started the trend of like vintage tuned lenses, or did you jump on that trend?
No, that it's not just vintage. I mean, I have a set of K35s that I bought like kind of accidentally somebody gave them to me for like nothing.
Nice.
And Dan Sasaki rehoused them, and so I, and then I mean I've always used, well, first of all, because I've been shooting for so long, that I mean the lenses that I used back then are now vintage lenses.
Right,
So,
right, sure.
and I stuck with them because I like them. But I mean, what we definitely started the trend, as first time it was done was on Ford versus Ferrari, when we decided we want 2:4 aspect ratio, but I did some tests, cropping it and shooting spherical, because it was the LF and I needed to cover it, and the anamorphics didn't cover it. And Dan is standing there. We're like 2 weeks out. We're already like picked spherical large format covering sphericals, and I go, that's so nice. These cars look so nice and anamorphic, and the flares, and it's like. And he goes, well, if you want, I can expand them. Now that's never been done before.
Dan can do anything.
I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, I can expand them so they cover the LF. And I go, okay. I mean, if you think you can do that, can you do it in like 2 weeks? So he did. I mean, but we left for France and we shot in Le Mans, and like literally they came off his bench, and they were still flawed, they had vignettes, but we loved the quality, and they were beautiful. And it was C series, and I had some T's also that I used mostly expanded C series, and then that movie had a great look, and a lot of people like jumped on those lenses, and then it became kind of a demand, and that they started converting a lot of those classic anamorphics. Also, not necessarily everybody was on board with that at Panavision. Like in London, I remember, they're like, oh, they're taking all these beautiful sets and they're expanding them, and they're going to be very hard to unexpand again because you're literally changing. It's not just like an adapter on the rear element or something. And now, of course, the Alexa 35 came out, and it takes unexpanded, like, so they didn't want to ruin all their beautiful sets. But and then they became much better at it. Dan became much better at it, to the point where, like, on Indiana Jones, I felt like the expanded T series that I had, and they were almost too perfect, too clean, didn't have enough character. And that's why I told him, for this one, I want something that felt more like your first experimental set that we did on Ford vs. Ferrari. And that's when he built what he calls these hybrids, which he's using some of what he learned on that for the new compact Cs that he's building, which I haven't seen yet. But so but at the time, and I don't even know right at this point right now, if there's more than one set of this. It's like, yeah. I mean, I've asked for it on a commercial, and it's out somewhere. So I guess people are using. I mean, they're of course it's their lenses, but it's definitely being used, and but yeah. So I mean, we did start that. I mean, not I, but Dan did create the vintage expanded anamorphics to cover large format. Was first done on Ford vs. Ferrari.
Gotcha. Yeah, Dan. Like the number of people who have said that man. So Joe Bogdanovich is to coloring as he is to lenses. Like my friend Marcus Porter, on September 5, he like took apart a lens to like modify it himself, and then he was like, "Yeah, I tried to put it back together and took it to Dan. Dan fixed it."
Yeah. If you go to his workbench, and it's just literally all these elements and stuff, and it's definitely. So it's a lot, like only you can put them back together, and you can literally give him. He goes, okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much halo do you want, or how much do you want this flare to be? I go, I don't know, 6. And he goes, and he's gone for like 10 minutes, and he comes back, and like I was adjusting my K35s for trial of Chicago 7 to match my anamorphics. And he would leave with one lens at a time. Okay, like on a scale from 1 to 10, like a 4 on this one. And he'd go and come back in 10 minutes. And he had achieved it. So I really don't know. So he should take some nose grease.
Yeah.
uh, no, but he does. Yeah, anyway, yeah. But yeah, and a little bit the problem is I don't think anybody else can do kind of what he does. And he's teaching, supposed to teach people.
Yeah. He needs to write a book or something. Jeez.
Well, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, we've got a little
gone
over.
a long time here.
Yeah. I
have to leave, actually.
No,
Yeah.
that's perfect. I was about to say we've gone a little over, and I really appreciate you spending the time. I was actually supposed to get a hold of you through a mutual friend, Brandon Cox.
Oh,
and then that never happened. Now you're here, so it's really awesome to be able to chat with you finally.
My pleasure. It was very enjoyable.
That's good to hear.
It was technical without feeling like a technical conversation.
Perfect. That's all I can ask for.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and I'm glad you enjoyed the movie.
I really did. And I don't even care about Bob Dylan that much, and now I do.
Well, good. That's how it's supposed to work. Like Ford versus Ferrari, all these people go, I don't even care about, don't like cars and never watched racing, and but it's Jim has this ability just to put the audience inside the characters and all of his emotional journey is the internal journey is what makes those movies special. Like what Ken Miles is actually experiencing and feeling inside the cockpit of that car. And it's, of course, incredible race footage as well. But what makes his movie special and why he gets these great performances because like it's those beats, those internal beats that the protagonist experiences and communicating that to the audience.
Yeah. Well, I also really love Ford versus Ferrari. So if whenever you're able to talk with me again, I'd love to go over some of the back catalog, Biodome, all the good ones.
Yeah, Biodome, yeah. Prey of the Roller Boys.
Yeah, exactly.
Trip to Kill 2.
Awesome, man. Well, please stay in touch and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Ken.
Frame and Reference is an Albot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.